Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everybody, for still being here after such an incredible day. I'm Jan Boelen of Atelier LUMA. Atelier LUMA is behind that closed wall after the exhibition, and it started exactly 2 years ago with the first LUMA Days. And there was one condition that Maya Hoffman gave to us. You have to collaborate with partners if you do a project. You can invite everybody around, but there is only one condition. You collaborate, you connect with the local scene, and this is what happened through the last years. So that's maybe also why I'm standing here and presenting two very different practices. This is not a conversation as such. These are on viewpoints. This is a presentation of two viewpoints, two different narratives, two witnesses, and two practices that are questioning interdependencies critically. On the one hand, there is Kiluanji Kia Henda. I always have it difficult to pronounce, but I hope I did it well. He's an artist born in Luanda and lives and works in Lisbon and Luanda itself in Angola. And his practice is really questioning the colonial past of Angola and the diaspora of Africa and notions of identity. We will have first a short presentation of his work. Then there is a short presentation of Christopher Roth. And after that, we have a short conclusion, a kind of question, approximately 30 minutes that will last. And then we go on to the next session. So I'm happy to give first the floor to Kiluanji Kia Henda. There it is.
Yep. Good afternoon. I want to thank for the invitation by LUMA Foundation to be here to talk about this interdependence topic, the narratives of interdependence. And for me, it's really important to talk about it, because I'm from Angola. For the ones that doesn't know, in the southern part of Africa, and how I could see it is more and more is still necessary, more important, that those narratives would not being close to a Eurocentric perspective, and that this is the importance of having artists from the South Hemisphere or people that could speak about it from another point of view. But only have 10 minutes to present my work very briefly, and as the only person, I think, in this program of LUMA Days talking about this from the South Hemisphere, I should get started. My work is very concerned about the recent history in Angola, because Angola is a country that has been for war for 40 years, from 1961 until 2002. And before that, there was the slavery. It's estimated that 1/3 of the slaves that were taken to Americas were from Angola. And then there was this process of colonization that was deeply violent. And then the struggle for the independence, 14 years of colonial war, and that was followed by the Civil War. And for me, it's I'm still really thinking every time when I travel, how people really knows about it, how people knows how much important, even to seem it's remote places, but how those places, how those happenings were really important in the global for the global strategy, even during the Cold War. And let's say the process in Angola for the independence was very violent because we had to go through a war. And as you can see here, this photo is a monument of Paulo Dias de Novaes, the founder of Luanda city, that is the capital, that was removed from the place it was. Because these kind of monuments, they became like clandestine citizens. Okay, it's much better now? Okay. So these, I'm sorry. Um, these monuments, they became like clandestine citizens. It's like their visa has been expired. And this process that was so violent that today we still look into it as the most kind of romantic colonization, because the Portuguese, they had this theory that was talking about the Lusotropicalism. It was much, more or less like the good colonizers. And like many times when I go to Portugal and I speak to some of my friends and I say like, well, my parents, they were part of the struggle to make Portugal a democratic country. They really don't understand it because what they know is that the revolution on the 25th of April in Portugal, 1974, was what brought the independence for the African countries that were colonized by the Portuguese. But it's completely the opposite, because that was the resistance that was happening in those countries that made the failure of the dictatorship in Portugal. And of course, it's not easy to understand that, and if you're still seeing, like in the scholarship in the schools and the kids, what they're teaching, it's still like this very kind of idea of trying to find like the positive aspects of colonization. But in the case of the Portuguese mainly, that we went through this war, and there was like napalm bombs used during the war. I think it's some of kind of bizarre cultural exchange when using napalms. And so it's this moment for me was important, like then to see how after the independence, the generation of my parents, they were like busy building a new country, like how you do a new country. Design a new flag, to compose a new anthem, and like creating some like new heroes. Some of them were like fictitious heroes, but they were needed. And during all that process, that we were like replacing the colonial heroes by the local, the national heroes. The country was also through a civil war that has a big influence by the Cold War. Of course, that international media would say that, oh no, we're talking about another ethnic war, a tribal war in Africa between like two different tribes and north and south. Yes, but the war in Angola had influence from Cubans, from Russia, that was supporting the government in power, and in the other side, like there was the invasion from the apartheid system from South Africa, which was supported by CIA, by Americans, and also had the collaboration of British and French mercenaries that was also part of it. And even like that, the media would talk about it like, no, we're talking, it's a very local conflict. And those kinds of facts, for me, I'm still thinking like, well, people has a lot of expectations what would be the Third World War. But does the Second World War has finished? Does this term of war by proxy is actually real? We can see that the influence is so deep, it's even like physical, the presence, and all these experimentations of weapons in like what we so-called remote territories. Um, and this for me was part of what the moment was I growing up when I was a kid. I was following all this. It was part of my formation also as an artist, because at that time, like, art was a tool of revolution. At that time, like, there were no museums or like there were few exhibitions, and what we could see, what we could call art, is what we could see in the streets, the murals, the paintings on the walls, the monuments, and the flags and T-shirts, but all as a tool for the revolution. Um, and I've been always worried that to see like how I could speak about Angolan history, but without like being how to deal with those wounds, I would say, because it's not easy until now. The war had finished. It's like 15 years ago. Many of the people that were part of all this tragedy, they're still alive. They're still in power. And so like for me as an artist, it was a way to maybe to approach certain delicate themes without like provoking such kind of like anger, because there's a lot of anger at the end. Like, people is really like, after all these years and all this violence, people felt really disgusted. And myself, I do also feel that anger, but anger is the worst way, is the worst thing to communicate and create some kind of harmony. And as it was happened in Angola, like the idea of the fable, the fiction, was very necessary at that time, because there was no time for reflecting about our own history, about all these violent episodes. So the fabulation, I would say that in French, I'm inventing a little bit, but the fable was very important. And this work I'm showing here now, as way to end my presentation, is the Poderosa de Bom Jesus, the title. And it's a friend of mine that I invited to do a photo shoot. She's a travesty in Luanda. Because for me it was important to see how today there's like kind of something is lost. All of those episodes from slavery, colonization, and civil war, today we're trying to find how, what is still African in us. Like, and there is a poem from the first president in Angola that say, "We shall return." And what he basically defends is that for the African man to become effectively independent, he should like return to their own life and traditions and culture from the pre-colonial history. That's impossible. That's almost impossible, and most of the people that are in power today, they are more worried to have a Mercedes-Benz and dressing Giorgio Armani. And so I invited Poderosa for this photo shooting, and I dressed her as an ancestral woman from the south of Angola, a way of like creating a trap for all this desire and longing of see this deep Africa, not only from the Western look, but also from the Angolan side, from the African way. And so we went to this landscape that is very near to the city. All these dresses, it's all made up. It's a mise-en-scène scenery. And at the end, when I showed this picture in Luanda, people would look to it and go like really proud and say, "Oh, yeah, that's deep Africa. Finally, you're working about the deep Africa, that's the traditional woman." But then they will look back and say, "Oh, it's not even a woman." And they see the high heel shoes and oh, it's not even like traditional. But the story went on, because I showed this work also in São Paulo. And during the exhibition, there was this little man called Bantuta Basisa that came to the exhibition and said, "Look, we are here in São Paulo, but here I'm the artist. I represent like Africa, and I do paintings, I cook, I dance, I do music. And so you have to contact me, you have to talk with me. And he disappeared from exhibition like after 15 minutes. And when I returned to Luanda, 2 months after, I was on the way to my studio, and I bought a newspaper, like on the way to studio, and there was this article about an exhibition of Bantu Tabasisa, and I was like, oh, I know this name. And when I looked better to it, I saw like, oh, that's Bantu, and the painting that was behind him was a copy of my photo. And Bantu was showing that in the Parliament Museum in São Paulo, in an exhibition about African traditional women. And that for me was kind of strong, let's say. I didn't like the fact that he also copied high heel shoes, I must say. But that's how we could discuss how much we lost from what we think what is like the deep Africa, what is the pre-colonial Africa, and what we're searching is almost impossible to find. And so I decided to buy the Bantu painting after 5 years. It was in 2009, and 2014 I decided to buy it, but I asked a friend of mine to buy this in São Paulo. And she is a journalist, and she recorded the conversation she had with Bantu Tabasisa, the artist. And he was like telling, this woman belongs to a tribe in the south of Angola, where like there are around 100 tribes in Angola. And yeah, no, it's fine. And Bantu doesn't know that I have the painting. So I want the story to go on and see how it will, what will be the end. I hope there will be no end. But the thing is that in the Bantu Tabasisa, Poderosa is a woman. Poderosa is not a travesti dressed as a woman, traditional woman. And that's what's important for me, and that's what I believed in the power of art. Yeah, Bantu, at the end, was the one that would transform it. And so I really proud about it at the same time, because he realized Poderosa's dream. So he was the real alchemist, what I expected to be one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiluanji. Christopher Roth, filmmaker. Architecture After Politics, The Property Drama are two of the films he will not show fully, but the trailers today. He is a founder of and co-founder of Space Time TV, a web platform where Reality TV and ETH together with Anna Brandhubel and 42 together are showing work. Also, he is questioning a profession or a situation, and that's that one of property. The floor is to Christopher Roth.
Thank you very much. Can you play the trailer, please? First one.
From France to the Philippines, from Jamaica to Japan, from Malaysia to Mexico, from Sri Lanka to Singapore, privatization is on the move.
Something new had been born. Its name was popular capitalism.
Popular capitalism is nothing less than a crusade to enfranchise the many in the economic life of the nation. We conservatives are returning power to the people. That is the way to one nation, one people.
Political means, are you right or you're left? or it means are you blue or you're red, green or whatever it is, and so it has already a kind of a negative or anyway, not a human face, and I can't change the word, but I think, how can you change it? How can you, maybe you have to go and say, instead of use the word, which is a problem with so many keywords, and say what you mean.
Some of the greatest changes to the globalizing world are being written in the language of architecture and urbanism, so there has to be a chance that we know something about it, and I'm sure that we, more than the 28-year-old McKinsey consultant who's making most of the global decisions, I'm sure that we know. So without leaving behind our fundamental forms of education, trying to bring those along to think about another kind of form making which gets us closer to that, and also changing narratives, understanding what makes changes contagious in persuasions and in discrepant messages and so on. It seems to me that there isn't any chance that spatial change we want to make is going to be made unless we can not only design the thing, but design the advent of that idea into culture.
Something that I learned during this year is storytelling. Storytelling. The risk of a technocratic government is that in the way you communicate, you easily fall into a too specialized discourse, too technical, too difficult to understand, too detailed. You miss the point, and you should make a story.
Okay. That's the second trailer. So the second trailer was actually made. Thank you. We teach at the ETH, and we teach on a design chair, and each semester you have to talk or show something to the students, and then they choose you. There are like 25 design chairs. And this was actually our topic, like what does it mean, the architecture job, and that was, that's why it's so kind of very missionary. The first trailer was for the third film we did, and the first one was called Legislating Architecture, the second one was called Property Drama, and the third one, Architecting After Politics. And the first one was really to see how you can use legislation as a design tool, not complain about it, but use it or kind of change it. The second one was, there is a very good German politician called Hans-Jochen Vogel. He's very old now, he's 90 years old, and since the 70s he says, the communes shouldn't sell the land. That will lead to speculation. And that's our main topic, that land shouldn't be something, because he says it's like water or air. Land is something you won't speculate, you won't sell, and these things. And the third, where you saw the trailer for, is actually concentrating on giving case studies. So there are people who do this Erbbaurecht, this heritage right, where from the communes, there are other case studies, how the system could change or could work. Because one of the things we always say to our students in the chair is, the first thing is don't complain. And the second thing is find an argument, but then compress the argument. So that's why we make television with them. And if the argument doesn't survive the compression, it wasn't a good argument.
Clear. Ownership. Ownership is, in fact, I want to talk about ownership. I shift a bit after seeing your both presentations, my questions to you, because suddenly I was thinking about, okay, we can talk today about together, ensemble, nice, but who is owning what? What are the rights of an image? What is the right of living at a certain place, and what do you own then? What kind of land do you have? How do you construct that? And how do you want to share? Completely different perspectives, but I would like to know from you, Kiluanji, how do you see that? Because this is a very privileged way about thinking about ownership and rights and commons and everything that is dealing with that. How do you see that from your perspective?
Well, I actually don't mean what you seen as ownership in the presentation that I did. Like,
for instance, your image that suddenly becomes is copied. But also your history and everything that is was taken away at a certain time, the identity, the country, the construction of that country even, that was all,
well, for me, it's very kind of, as I've been learning and living in this territory where people really find it strange how to deal with the idea of sharing it, because every moment that it had to happen, it was through like conflicts and wars and invasion and occupation. And somehow it, even for ourselves to see how today in Angola, like if we want to describe ourselves as Angolans, it all had to do about the colonization process. There is no Angola without the colonial presence. There is no idea of nation, there is no idea of country without the Portuguese, as the common language, as the common thing that brings the idea of unity and nation. And it really, but it's still curious that if you look to the African continent, the borders that you still had, like from the pink map in Berlin, they still exist. They're still there. There's only one country that was divided. That is Sudan. Then I have Sudan of North, Sudan South, and so like the borders somehow, even through all these wars and conflicts that had happened, still like much more stable than in Europe. Because in Europe, like you had Yugoslavia don't exist anymore. Now, Germany was separated, now it's unified. Spain, there is a lot of independent movements. And so it's, I think it has a lot to do with generosity, even in times of struggling, even in times of violence, you still have this kind of generosity because people had also kind of mixed a lot, and so these borders became kind of solid somehow. And so to talk about ownership and this right of imagery that you say, it's still very complicated issue in many points.
I think you touched on something very nice, generosity. The mayor that said the land should not be sold and should be part and stay part of the community. Was that a generous gesture? Was that done with a certain generosity? Yeah?
Well, I mean, he wanted to prevent speculation, and I mean, cities like Munich, Berlin had it in his coalition contract or something, but didn't do it. Now say they don't sell land anymore because they don't own land anymore to build schools or to do anything. And if people just don't build there, they just wait until the infrastructure is there, and then the speculation is up. You all know that. I mean, now it happens all over the world, and now everybody cries, oh, what could we do? But or in Berlin now they have this initiative that they want to take it back, or I don't know. But the thing is, I mean, it is like water or air. We need the land, and if you don't have the land, I mean, what do you want to do? You have to go to another city. You have to rent. The rents go up because of speculation. So, I mean, it's a very easy thought, and he has foreseen it when everybody said, "Oh my God, this is like East Germany." Or this is like socialism and whatever. So, I mean, the land thing will be for the next years, I think, the most important thing, also for architects. I mean, it's not, I mean, if you build nice buildings, but where do you build them on? And who can afford it to build even social housing? Who can afford it? Because the land is so expensive. I think it's not generosity, it's just logics.
Logics. that is not in your vocabulary. Eh? Thank you. More questions for Christopher and for Kiluanji when they are walking around. That's what I promised to Maria. We have to go on with the program. Thank you very much, Christopher Roth and Kiluanji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.